Okay, so you know how sometimes you just get stuck? Like really stuck in your own head? I swear, I spent way too long today trying to decide between two sweaters. Two. Like it was some life-altering decision. But that's my brain on overthinking. Always happy to overanalyze absolutely
And
everything.
you're definitely not the only one.
Right. It feels like everyone struggles with this. So, in this deep dive, we're going to dig into all these articles and studies you sent on overthinking. Because seriously, it's more than just a funny quirk, right?
It's definitely not. It can really impact your well-being when it's chronic. I mean, we're talking about real, tangible effects on your health. Like, the research clearly shows connections between overthinking and anxiety.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anxiety is a given with this whole overthinking thing.
And then there's the impact on sleep.
Ugh, don't even get me started on sleep. 3 a.m. is basically my brain's designated overthinking hour.
Yeah, insomnia and just poor sleep quality in general are
Mm.
really common with chronic overthinking. And even, believe it or not, overthinking can even mess with your digestion.
Okay, wow. So my overthinking brain is basically trying to sabotage my entire system. That's not cool. But how's this even happen? What's going on in our brains that makes us such expert overthinkers?
Well, a lot of it comes down to brain networks, these different parts of your brain that work together. Or sometimes, they don't really work together. Like imagine an orchestra where everyone's kind of playing their own thing.
Okay, I like that analogy. So what instruments are in the overthinking orchestra?
Well, there's this thing called the default mode network. It's like the inward focus part of your brain.
So that's the part that loves to replay embarrassing moments from like 5 years ago on repeat.
Exactly. Daydreaming, reminiscing, overthinking. That's the DMN in action. It's not a bad thing on its own. It's just that in people who overthink, it's like that part of their brain is always switched on.
So it's not that we have some special overthinking brain region. It's just that the volume's cranked up way too high on the stuff everyone experiences.
Exactly. Now, to make this orchestra even more interesting, we've got other parts playing along too, like the salience network. Think of it like a filter that's supposed to decide what deserves your attention.
Okay, so it's like the conductor trying to get everyone to play the same tune.
Exactly. And then there's the central executive network that's kind of like your inner conductor,
Yeah.
helping you switch between different thoughts and tasks.
Okay, I see where this is going. When those parts aren't in sync, that's when we get stuck, right? Like a broken record of worries.
Yes. When those networks aren't communicating well, you can get trapped in these thought loops. It's like having a song stuck in your head, but instead of a catchy tune, it's that what if that just won't quit.
Tell me about it. So, the big question is, how do we hit stop on that broken record?
And that is the million-dollar question. But the good news is there are actually proven techniques, like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. It basically helps rewire those connections in your brain.
CBT, like hitting the reset button on all that negative self-talk? I'm listening.
Right, so imagine you could put those anxious thoughts on trial. That's kind of what CBT helps you do. You learn to identify those thought patterns when they pop up, but then, instead of just accepting them, you challenge them.
So instead of going down that rabbit hole of what ifs, I can be like, hold up, brain, is this even true?
Exactly. It's about bringing some objective evidence into those thought spirals.
Okay, I can get behind that. So what are some of these CBT tricks?
One that can be super effective is called scheduled worry time.
Wait, so I actually schedule time to worry? Like, put it in my calendar. How does that help?
I know it sounds counterintuitive, right?
Mm.
But hear me out. The idea is to pick a time each day, maybe 15 minutes or so, and during that time you let yourself worry. Like really go for it. Write down everything that's bugging you. But once the time's up, that's it. You table those worries until your next scheduled time.
Interesting. So it's like containing those worries instead of letting them run wild all day. I could see how that would help you feel more in control.
It's all about regaining that sense of control over your thoughts instead of letting them control you.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. What else?
Well, there's also mindfulness meditation, which is all about being present in the moment. It's like the opposite of what our overthinking brains want to do.
Oh, right, because my brain's favorite hobby is basically time traveling to the past or future to find new things to worry about. But meditation, I've tried that and it just seems so, I don't know, hard.
You don't have to be a Zen master to benefit from it. Even just a few minutes each day focusing on your breath or your senses can help quiet all that mental chatter.
So it's like hitting the mute button on my inner monologue. That sounds pretty tempting.
Exactly. It can really help break that cycle of overthinking and help your brain learn to be more present.
Yeah.
But then there's that other beast when overthinking completely hijacks your ability to just make a simple decision. Like, suddenly I'm spending 20 minutes trying to pick out a cereal at the grocery store. Oh, yeah, that's classic decision paralysis. It's like the evil twin of overthinking, and it can be so frustrating.
You're telling me it's like my brain turns into this analysis machine, and suddenly I'm incapable of making even the simplest choices.
And the ironic thing is that striving for the perfect choice often leads to worse outcomes. There was actually this study, the JAM experiment. They found that when people had too many options, they were actually less likely to buy any jam at all.
Oh my gosh, that's totally me in the grocery store, too many choices, and suddenly I'm walking out with nothing. But how do we get out of that decision-making black hole?
Well, I think a good place to start is by recognizing that perfect is the enemy of good enough. Sometimes making a good enough decision quickly is better than overanalyzing everything.
Right, because while I'm busy trying to pick the absolute best option, life is just passing me by.
Exactly. And deadlines, setting deadlines can be a lifesaver too, no pun intended.
Okay, deadlines and good enough. I'm writing this down. It's about getting out of my head and actually taking action, right?
Yes. And remember, like anything else, decision-making is a skill. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Start small, low-stakes decisions and build up that confidence.
Okay, so no more agonizing over which brand of toothpaste to buy. But you know what really throws a wrench into all of this? Social media.
Ah, yes. Social media and the overthinking mind, not exactly a match made in heaven.
It's like a breeding ground for comparison and self-doubt. We're constantly bombarded with these seemingly perfect lives. It's exhausting.
And as addictive algorithms, don't get me started. They're designed to keep us hooked, often at the expense of our well-being.
It's true. The more time we spend scrolling, the worse we tend to feel. So what do we do about it? We can't just, throw our phones into the ocean, right?
No, but being more mindful of our social media use can make a huge difference.
Okay, so it's all about creating healthier boundaries.
Exactly. Like setting time limits on certain apps. That can be surprisingly helpful.
I've tried those app limits, but I swear, I have zero willpower.
It definitely takes practice.
Yeah.
But also, think about who you're following. Do certain accounts make you feel worse after looking at them?
Oh, 100%. The perfectly curated lives, the constant vacation photos, it's like they're trying to make me feel bad about my own life.
Right. So hit that unfollow button. Your mental health will thank you.
Ooh, tough love. I like it.
Yeah.
So less scrolling, more real life stuff. What else?
Cultivating gratitude can be huge.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus on what we lack when we're constantly bombarded with images of what everyone else supposedly has.
Right. Nobody's posting about their messy apartment or their pile of bills. It's all sunshine and rainbows online, which makes it hard to remember that everyone's going through stuff.
Exactly. Shifting your focus to what you appreciate in your own life can be such a powerful antidote to all that comparison.
Okay, I can get behind that. Gratitude is a good thing. This is making me realize that overthinking is kind of like our brain's way of trying to control things, Especially in a world that feels so uncertain. It's like our brains are convinced that we just think about it enough, worry about it enough, we can somehow control everything.
That's a very human instinct, that desire for control. But the paradox is, the more we try to control things, the more anxious we often become. Because let's face it, so much of life is beyond our control.
It really is. Okay, so if overthinking isn't the answer, what is? How do we make peace with uncertainty? How do we stop feeling like we need to have it all figured out all the time?
Well, what if, instead of trying to eliminate uncertainty, we tried embracing it?
Embrace uncertainty. That sounds terrifying and also kind of amazing at the same time. But how? How do we even begin to shift our mindset like that?
It starts with changing how we see things. Instead of seeing uncertainty as the enemy, as something to fear, what if we looked at it as an opportunity for growth, for adventure, maybe even for joy?
Okay, so turning what if something bad happens into what if something amazing happens? I like the sound of that. But honestly, how do we actually get there? Because my brain seems hardwired for the negative what ifs.
It definitely takes practice.
Yeah.
But one of the most powerful tools we have is self-compassion.
Self-compassion. Okay, explain that one to me. Because usually I'm much better at beating myself up for overthinking than I am at showing myself compassion.
That's really common, though. It's so easy to be our own worst critics, especially when we're stuck in those overthinking spirals. But imagine talking to a friend who's struggling with the same worries. You wouldn't be harsh or judgmental toward them, right?
Of course not. I'd be way more likely to offer support and understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why not offer ourselves that same kindness?
Okay, so it's about treating myself with the same compassion I would show a friend. Less self-judgment, more self-support. But how do we actually do that? How do we stop those negative self-talk tapes from playing on repeat?
Mindfulness can be really helpful here. Remember, we were talking about it earlier.
Right. Being present in the moment, not lost in our thoughts.
Yes. It's about noticing those thoughts and feelings without judgment,
Hmm.
allowing them to be there without getting swept away by them.
So instead of getting all caught up in that spiral of, I shouldn't be overthinking this, I can just observe the thought and then gently redirect my attention back to the present moment.
You got it. And over time, that can make a huge difference.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on overthinking. It's not just about silencing those thoughts, but understanding where they come from and learning how to navigate them in a healthier way.
And remember, you are not alone in this. Overthinking is a common human experience. It's not a sign of weakness or something to be ashamed of.
So true. We all do it, but we don't have to let it control our lives.
Exactly. By understanding the science behind those thoughts, by cultivating self-compassion, and yes, even by embracing a bit of uncertainty, you can step out of that mental maze and into a life that's more peaceful, more fulfilling, and maybe even a little more joyful.
From overthinking to embracing the unknown, that's a journey I'm ready to take.